Do you know the saddest thing about low self-confidence is that it convinces talented people to hide? Some people don't disappear from the world. They vanish while still standing in front of you. Imagine a room filled with talented people, artists, writers, thinkers, dreamers. Now imagine most of them saying nothing, sharing nothing, or creating nothing. Not because they have nothing to offer, but because somewhere along the way, someone made them believe their voice was a burden. This is not a story about becoming fearless. It is a story about becoming visible, and why that might be the bravest thing a person can do. There was once a boy who apologized for everything, not because he was polite, but because he believed his existence was inconvenient. Sorry. That word followed him everywhere like a shadow. Sorry for speaking too loudly. Sorry for asking questions. Sorry for taking too long. Sorry for making mistakes. Sorry for being emotional. Sorry for needing help. Sorry for breathing. And the frightening part is that most people called him kind. Kindness and fear can sometimes look identical from the outside. Because there are people in this world who are not gentle, they are actually terrified. Terrified of rejection, judgment, or becoming a burden. The boy's name was Kai. There was also a girl named Priya, who always sat 3 rows behind Kai in English class. She never spoke, and that was not because she had nothing to say. At night, she wrote poetry. Lovely, heartbreaking poems about oceans and silence, and the way her mother's hands shook whenever she poured tea. Priya kept her notebook tucked inside a second compartment of her backpack, under an old sweater during the day. One time, a classmate looked into her desk and said, "Oh, you write?" Priya closed the notebook so fast that she trapped her own finger inside. She didn't even feel the pain. "It's nothing," she said. "Just notes." That night, she did not go to bed until 2 a.m. She was rewriting the poem she wanted to show her classmates. Then she deleted it from her laptop entirely. She cried. She wrote it again from memory. Then she hid it again. Low self-confidence made Priya believe that her voice was forgettable before anyone even got to listen to it. Kai and Priya had never spoken to each other before, but they recognized something common in them. The way Kai tilted his head down when walking through hallways. The way Priya hugged her backpack like armor. They were 2 invisible people passing each other every day without ever saying, "I see you, I'm hiding too." There was again a boy named Marcus. And if you met Marcus, you would never guess he belonged in the same sentence as Kai and Priya. Marcus laughed loudly. He cracked jokes in the cafeteria. He usually walked into rooms like he owned them. Teachers called him confident. Students called him funny. But there was something nobody knew. Every morning, Marcus would sit on the edge of his bed, staring at his phone, waiting for someone to text him first. Most days, nobody did. So he would send a message into a group chat, a joke or a meme, just anything. And then he would wait. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes. If nobody responded, his brain would tell him they're ignoring you. They were never really your friends. You're exhausting. So to avoid that feeling, Marcus learned to speak first, loudest and fastest. He filled silence with sound because silence felt like rejection. He made everyone laugh because if people were laughing, they weren't leaving. One afternoon, Marcus cracked a joke and nobody laughed. That was actually the first time it happened, and it is a normal thing that happens to everyone. But Marcus felt his chest collapse. He ran to the restroom, locked the door, and stood there breathing like he had just run from something dangerous. He had not run from anything except the possibility that he was not enough. Mira, the old art teacher, noticed all 3 of them because she had been them. 30 years ago, Mira was a young painter who stopped painting. She had hung her brushes in the garage after a professor said her work was technically fine, but emotionally shallow. This sentence kept replaying in her head for a decade. So she became a teacher instead, because she felt it was a safe and quiet job. She told herself she had chosen practicality over art. But every spring when the cherry blossoms bloomed outside her classroom window, she felt a sharp pain in her chest, because that was the season she used to paint, the season she abandoned. One day, Kai bumped a desk and he said, "I'm sorry." Mira was watching him apologizing for bumping a desk. Then she asked him, "Why do you apologize like you committed a crime?" But then she recognized her own buried self. When she saw Priya hugging her backpack, she remembered the sketchbooks she had hidden under her bed. When Marcus laughed too loud at his own joke, she heard the echo of her own desperate performances at faculty parties. One Tuesday afternoon, Mira assigned an open project: create something honest. Kai almost didn't want to do the project. Something honest? He asked himself. He had spent years building walls between himself and honesty. But then something about Mira's face made him decide to write it. Same thing with Priya, but she thought about her mother, who worked double shifts at the hospital, who never saw her poems, who would never know her daughter had a voice at all. So she stayed. Marcus wanted to drop the class too, because he did not know who he was without an audience. Honest art meant standing still. He had never learned how to stand still. That week, Kai drew a picture of a boy standing in a room full of mirrors. Every mirror showed the boy shrinking smaller and smaller, until the last mirror showed nothing at all. He almost threw it away. Then he remembered Mira's question, "Why do you apologize like you committed a crime?" Because that question made him recognize that hiding himself was the real problem, not the drawing. Then he turned in the drawing. Priya wrote a poem called "The Backpack." It was about carrying things that were never yours to carry, about zippers and silence and the weight of hiding. She submitted it with shaking hands. Marcus did something unexpected. He recorded himself playing piano, just his hands on the keys, no face, no jokes, no audience, just chords he had learned from his grandmother before she forgot his name. He titled it "Forgetting." Mira displayed all 3 pieces in the classroom without asking for permission. Kai walked in the next morning and saw his mirror drawing pinned on the corkboard. His first instinct was to rip it down, but Priya was standing in front of it. She was crying. "That's me," Priya whispered to herself. "That's exactly me." Marcus walked over. He looked at Priya's poem, then at Kai's drawing, then at his own video still playing on Mira's laptop. "Wait," said Marcus slowly. "We're all the same, aren't we?" For the first time in Kai's life, he did not say sorry. He just nodded. Mira did not give a speech that day. She just stood by the window, watching 3 young people see themselves in each other's work. And deep in her mind, the cherry blossoms bloomed again, not because she had healed, because she had remembered she used to paint. That night, Mira drove home, walked into her garage, and pulled out her brushes. The paint had dried. Some bristles had cracked. She boiled water, cleaned them slowly, and set up a canvas. Then she painted a woman holding a mirror. In the mirror was a girl holding a paintbrush. From that day on, Kai stopped apologizing for small things first, then medium things, and then one day he said no to a group project without explaining himself. His heart pounded, but nobody died. Priya read one of her poems at an open mic. Her voice cracked in the middle. People clapped anyway. She read another one the next month. Her voice cracked less. Marcus stopped performing in group chats. He lost 2 friends who only liked him when he was funny. He kept one friend who liked him when he was quiet. That friend taught him that silence was not rejection. Sometimes silence was just 2 people breathing the same air. Years later, Kai became an illustrator. Priya published a poetry collection. Marcus composed music for short films. None of them became famous, but they became visible to themselves first, then to others. And if you are watching this and you feel like Kai, apologizing for existing, or like Priya, hiding your voice in a backpack, or like Marcus, laughing so you don't have to feel invisible, understand this: you are not broken. You were taught to be small, and what was taught can be unlearned. Not overnight, or because one person said something beautiful to you, but because tiny acts of courage, a drawing kept on paper, a poem read aloud, a piano key pressed honestly, those acts add up. They rebuild you, brick by brick. One day, you will stop apologizing for taking up space, and that day you will realize you were never a burden. You were a storm waiting to be seen.